Greetings, amusing nicknames, and welcome to Codex Compliant. Or more specifically, welcome to the third installment of Addendums and Errata, where we tell you what we got wrong, that we know of, in the last 20 episodes of this series, as well as some other interesting things we found out after the videos were done. A couple of little ones from the Codex City Fight video. We say the Cities of Death book came out in 5th edition, but it was actually a 4th edition book. In our defence, the books from those two editions had the same style of covers, and we just thought it was a 5th edition one. Whenever you assume you know something and don't actually check these things, you are almost guaranteed to be wrong. It is a lesson we must all learn over and over again. The other is that at least one of the teeny tiny posters from the PDFs we dug up was actually shown in full in White Dwarf. So if you want to clearly see what it said, you can. If, you own that issue or pause the video now, you can do these things.
There was nothing wrong with the gobbledygook video as far as we know, but there was a fun little connection that we found out about afterwards. So, you know how we talked about the White Dwarf strip, Derek the Troll? And you know how these days there's usually a transformer sitting behind me on the desk in videos, since that's just a thing I'm into? Well, Loose Stringer, Derek the Troll's author, also did comics for the UK version of the Transformers Marvel Comics, which had a similar sort of tone to Derek, but without the fantasy setting. I just thought that was kinda neat, since I know there's a lot of Warhammer fans who are also into Transformers like me, so anything that combines the two things, however tenuously, is interesting. Yes, I know about Grimlock. In the Space Marine painting set video, we somehow did not recognise that this thing wasn't a Minotaur and was, in fact, just the old design for the Golden Demon. We even acknowledge this at the very start of the next episode. Oh yeah, it's the Golden Demon and not a Minotaur. And, it makes a lot of sense to put him on a paint set. He was on the other paint sets of the time, after all. And we even showed those in the video, so we've got no excuse for this one, beyond that video having a really torturous production due to real-life stuff we had going on. It's kind of a miracle it wasn't more of a mess, to tell you the truth.
In the Dogs of War video, there was a small mistake in that we showed a picture of Sigmar to represent the Emperor rather than Karl Franz, who was the Emperor actually being referenced in that bit. Neatly illustrating why we don't cover Warhammer Fantasy often, despite how much we're asked to do so, since we just have way less general knowledge about the setting than we do about 40k, so little mistakes like that crop up more often. In the White Dwarf issue 50 episode, we mentioned Griselda and Wolfhead not being White Dwarf characters, but they, in fact, were in some previous issues starring in fiction set in the RuneQuest world, so their inclusion in the White Dwarf personalities does check out. They just weren't as prolific as, Thrud. Also, the cover art of the Pigman from that issue seems to be a nod to the story The House on the Borderland by William Hope Hodgson. And by that, I mean it has literally been released using this art on the cover. A thing more people than you'd expect seem to instantly recognise despite that being a book from 1908. Although it has had a fair share of adaptations and reprints over the last century or so maybe it's not that strange.
In the Lamenters video, we talked about the Lamenters ship names, the Mater Lacrimarum and the Mater Suspiria, being references to either the films of Dario Argento or the writings of Thomas de Quincey. And the former is actually referencing the latter anyway, but whatever. Well, it was pointed out to us that it is probably an Argento reference specifically, because he directed a lot of films in the murder mystery giallo genre, and giallo means yellow in Italian. And the Lamenters are very, very yellow. If you're curious as to why any mystery story of any type should be known as yellow in Italy, it's apparently due to an old series of yellow-covered pulp novels that featured those kind of stories. So the genre picked up an association with the colour. We also apparently missed a short story containing the Lamenters from 2006, The Fall of Malvolio by Dan Abnett. In it, the Lamenters show up to help some Mordian Iron Guard, only to be entirely torn apart by an unreasonable amount of Tyranids. It's pretty bleak with a very high Lamenter body count, so nothing new there, but we mention it now out of completeness.
The Spacefarers video seems alright, although that video did get a fair bit of pushback due to us harping on the game's use of the term men to refer to every model. Some people getting really mad at us for calling the game sexist, which we didn't actually do. Or others, more reasonably, pointing out that it wasn't super uncommon in games at the time to do this and comes from military language. And we just want to say that yes, we knew that. And although you could use this as a springboard to talk about how a lot of language is unnecessarily gendered, and there's no actual reason it needs to stay that way regardless of its origins, we weren't actually trying to make any grand statement about anything there. Spacefarers just used it in ways that often made for very awkward sentences when other games of the time period managed to use less awkward language. And we thought it was kind of funny, so we made a thing of it. That was it. That was our point.
Okay, here's a couple from the Warhammer 1st Edition video. The Lizardman mini we showed appears to have actually been released under the C26 numbering rather than C19 as we said. Those numbers were combined together in some places we checked, leading to our mistake. But I'll take the fact that we've never actually seen anyone correct us on this to demonstrate exactly how much those numbers matter. Similarly, we said that Warhammer 2nd Edition came out in 1984, since that's what its copyright date says, but it seems like it actually saw release in January of 1985. This is again something we didn't see anyone correct us on, but still, we did realise these bits were wrong eventually, so we needed to include them, at least to show that we occasionally do figure out our mistakes on our own. In the Githyanki video, there's a mistake right at the start, since my half-remembered memory of playing a sorcerer in Baldur's Gate 1 was apparently a false one. Sorcerers were only added in the later Enhanced Edition from 2013, and that's the version I quickly played to check if my memory was correct, entirely unaware that new classes were added in that release at all. I must have been playing some other spellcaster back in the day, but again, it was a half-remembered memory we're dealing with here. I did not anticipate it being subjected to this level of scrutiny when recounting it, but my mistake just happened to be one that actually mattered. Also, we probably should have mentioned that there were Citadel Githyanki minis. Partially because their product code was ADD69 and our sense of humour has not matured since being 13, but also because the way the elbows on one of them are sculpted may explain why the elbows on the Githyanki art from the Fiend Folio cover are, you know, like that. Weird scrotal elbows, they unnerve me.
So, we think that's about it. It's obviously been a while since we did one of these corrections episodes, since we had a bit there where we weren't really putting out as many videos, so it's likely there's more we missed or forgot about here or there. But even then, we feel this is all fairly minor stuff. So from here on out, we're not going to do these every 20 episodes, and instead, we'll do them whenever there's enough to talk about that's worth talking about. Because at this rate, we'll have to start correcting our grammar to fill up the episodes, and that is not a box we wish to open. I mean, now that we've said this, we're probably going to make some massive mistakes in the next few videos, just watch. Anyway, see you next time.